All right. Well, like she said, I'm Sandra Newton. I usually go by Denise. You usually see me as S. Denise Newton online. A lot of people are always asking me what the S stands for. So it's Sandra. Um, and I'm coming to you from Raleigh, North Carolina. And I am an author, a speaker, an activist. Um, and I do quite a few things. That is, I just love meeting people. I love learning. I want to learn until all of my brain cells are dead. I just love learning new things and just staying engaged and staying connected to people. Again, like I said, I am an author. I've written a couple of books. Um, I just enjoy I just enjoy people. I mean, and that's my biggest thing. And I love children. I was a teacher. I retired from teaching a couple years ago, and I miss the little ones. And I thank Gertrude for inviting me to take part in this particular forum. I have enjoyed listening to you all. You guys, I'm just looking at my content and thinking, oh boy, I might should have done a little more. You guys are just amazing. From what I've heard tonight, you're all just absolutely amazing group here. So, what I want to talk to you briefly, my presentation is pretty brief, but I think that it's enough in here for you to get to get an idea of what it is that I believe that I want you to know anyway. And that is about stepping outside of your comfort zone to find yourself, to find your calling, your purpose, and your destiny. Sometimes, we are a little afraid to get outside of that comfort zone. We don't want to test the waters of anything else out of fear, out of fear of failure or whatever that is. But sometimes we can't find ourselves where we are, so we have to step outside. And first, I want to say greetings to all. It is indeed a pleasure and honor to be here this evening to briefly share my story with all of you. And definitely, I'm grateful to the beautiful Gertrude for this invitation. Um, and I want to just tell you how I began to step outside of my comfort zone. And there is a connection to Gertrude for that, and how I was able to do that in the year of 2011. But let me start here. I just recently lost my beautiful mother to colorectal cancer just a few weeks ago. It was very sudden, very unexpected. From the time of her diagnosis to the time of her death was only about 10 days. So I'm still kind of reeling from all of that. But everything that I do from this point forward is certainly in dedication to her memory and wanting to carry on her legacy. So I intend to work even harder at things because life is short, life is unpredictable, and we just don't know. Yeah, thank you, Ruth. And we just don't know where death is. So we don't have time to wait. We don't have time to waste. We need to really, whatever is in us, we need to pull it out and get busy. That is the truth. Um, it's hard when you lose your mom. It's hard when you lose anyone that you love, but it's something really, really, when you lose mom, it really does hit a lot harder. I still find myself reaching for the phone sometimes, and my mom just died 3 weeks ago. I still find myself reaching for the phone to call her sometimes, and I'm having to instantly remember I can't do that anymore because she's not here. And I have to find a new normal in my life now without her. But I do realize that she is still on the journey with me. So I love getting involved in women causes. And I'm also an Army veteran as well. I served in the United States Army. And I had a chance to travel to a few interesting countries during my time in service. I love getting involved in women issues and women causes because I wholeheartedly believe that for every issue, for every problem, and for every societal ill that we face in our world, there is a solution, and that women have that answer. This is not discounting the men at all, because you do too. All of us that have a purpose, that's the answer. If we got a purpose and a calling in this world, that's the answer to everything in our world. But I know that us women, when we put our mind to something, when we put our talents and our abilities to something, we can move obstacles and we can move mountains. many of us have to simply find out what we were put on this earth to do. And once we find that out, we need to do it with everything in us. And we can't let obstacles, problems, or anything else to keep us from answering the call that was placed in us at conception. Because I believe whatever we were put on this earth to do happened at conception. Now, some things we may come into, once we begin our life, and maybe even once we get into school or things of that nature. But for the most part, whatever we was put, that God ordained thing that was placed in us, whatever we were supposed to do, it happened at conception. When we don't use that thing that God has put in us, or that purpose, that calling, I feel that we're robbing people that need what we have. Now, some people are selfish with that. We're selfish. We don't want to use it unless we got a great big audience, or unless we're getting a great big payday or something. We don't want to use it. But when we're doing that, we're robbing people of something that's very needed. And I think that's very selfish, and it's hurtful. And when you look at our world today and all of the problems and the pain that we're seeing, there's answers to all of that. It's out there. Somebody has that answer, but they're sitting on it for whatever reason. Whether that is because, well, unless you're going to give me, again, X amount of money, or unless I can stand before 50,000 people, then I can't do it. Sorry. We don't know. But I don't want to be one of those people. If I'm sent to do something for one person, I want to be able to say, I'm going to that one person to do what I need to do. And again, we can't let obstacles or problems keep us from doing what we were called to do, because we do rob society that way. And I want to share briefly, when I was in the United States Army, I experienced a brutal rape at gunpoint. And I faced a lot of sexual harassment. That's the nature of being, at that time anyway, of being a female in the armed forces. And that pretty much ended my military career. But for several years after that, I was unsure of my path. I went through a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, and a lot of post-traumatic stress syndrome. And it followed me everywhere I went. I often thought that I wasn't worthy of anything good, or that anything good would ever happen for me again. I felt trapped and I felt ruined. I no longer hoped or dreamed. I gave the bare minimum to each day. There were dreams, goals, and aspirations that were buried deep inside me, but I was afraid to free them. I was afraid that something bad would crush them, as my military aspirations were crushed through that trauma that I sustained when I was in the military. But at some point, I finally got up enough strength and courage to try internet radio, because communications is a field I studied in college. And I also was in the communications field in the military. So I started to feel a little bit good about myself again. And this is how I first became connected with Gertrude. And although I didn't have a huge following on radio, I enjoyed interviewing people and talking to people around the world. And I always had this desire to visit the continent. I never been, all of my military travels, I never made it to the continent of Africa, but I always had the desire to do so. And through Gertrude, I was able to do that. I interviewed her on my radio show, and I was able to go on what I'm calling a pilgrimage to the continent. And I want to say that through doing that, my life was very impacted and changed forever from that. And this happened in 2011. Not only was I able to personally witness the beauty and majesty of South Africa, I believe that I was personally touched by the ancestors to do a special work in the 21st century. Because once I returned back from South Africa, certain things began to happen that I believe were activated in me after that trip. I really believe that I was touched by the ancestors. When I say that, people look at me like I got 4 heads. But I believe that something special happened when I went there, because there were things that happened when I got back that did not happen before I went over there. So I will always believe that 4 heads or not, I will continue to say this. Working and interacting with primary school children, helping with resources, food, and supplies gave me a hunger and thirst for humanitarianism that I didn't have before I went over there. I felt empowered and motivated to touch lives outside of my own in any way possible. I felt a connection to my people that I never ever felt before. I moved outside of a comfort zone and found the new normal for my life. And it was humanitarianism. And I love it. So we must learn not to operate also in mediocrity. A mediocre mindset yields mediocre results. And I think about those who know the Bible. There's a scripture that talk about being lukewarm, and this is what I compare mediocrity to. If you ever pour yourself up a hot cup of coffee and let it sit for a minute, and it starts to cool off, and you go back and you sip that coffee, okay, it's now I can personally say that coffee is horrible. Once it starts to get cold, I don't like it. It's just awful. It's time to either pour that stuff out and go get some fresh hot coffee, right? This is what mediocrity does. Mediocrity is just saying you're just doing the bare minimum, and doing the bare minimum will only yield you bare minimal results. So anything that you're doing, if you're not giving it 100%, you're only going to get what you put in. I think that's a basic concept. So anything that we're doing, if we want to yield great results, we're going to have to put some blood, sweat, and tears in it. And I don't think anybody can argue that in today's time that we're living in, I think everybody ought to be giving their all to anything that they're doing, because our world is groaning in pain. It really is, our world and our communities, and even for some of us, our families. So I believe that God put me on this earth to empty out to others. He put me here to give myself away, in essence, to give myself away to others. What can I do for take from myself to give to somebody else? I don't have a mansion on a hill. I don't have this big fat bank account. I don't have any of that. But I have found other ways that I can to give myself away to other people, to avail myself in whatever way I can, because this is what we should all be doing as human beings. We wouldn't have all of this pain in our world if we would all kind of wrap ourselves around that concept a little bit, because anything that God has placed in us, and that's my faith part, and I don't just assume that everybody has faith like the kind of faith that I have, but anything that God has placed in us, He's going to ensure its success. All we have to do is just walk the path. He will ensure the success of it Himself. All we got to do is just have enough faith to just walk it out. But I had to get to the point where I did no longer allow the pain of sexual assault, the pain of trauma, the pain of grief, even the grief that I'm going through right now with my mother's death. I cannot allow that for me to just wallow and say I can no longer do the things I'm supposed to do. I have to take some time aside for the mourning process and the grief. It's going to be a minute. It's only been 3 weeks, but I can't just shut down my whole life, because even my mother wouldn't want that, because there's so much that needs to be done in this day. And so even regardless of personal situations, we still have to we have to keep moving. If you don't already know your purpose, for those people of faith that believe in prayer, that believe in God, I believe if you ask, He will reveal it to you what your purpose is. But if you don't believe in that way, then there's always something in your belly that if you can spend the rest of your life doing one thing for the rest of your entire life, that's probably what you was meant to do on this earth, what you was put on this earth to do. That one thing that you can do for the rest of your entire life, if you could wake up every day and do that one thing, that's probably your calling, your purpose, your destiny. That's what you were sent here to do. And that is what I think that's what we should pursue. And there's not and age doesn't matter. I'm quick to cut people off if that's something I should have done this 20 years ago. I should have done this. Oh, no, no, no. If you can still feel breath in your body, you still do that right then, right now. That's when you do it. Nobody cares about 30 years ago. You care about you're still here. You're still needed. You're still valid. You're still invaluable. You're still needed now. So do it now. That's the way I look at that. That ageism stuff, forget about it. Do it now. So the world groans in pain. And the salve to this pain is everybody doing their part. Everybody is not going to be a big public figure that's going to be on TV or be on a big stage with a big microphone. And it doesn't take all that. Sometimes that little thing that you can do can have a big ripple effect. And sometimes it's just a matter of transforming your mind and think that some people, we don't have to always aspire to big stage. Just do what you can do from your corner. And if everybody did what they can do from their own corner, oh my goodness, we could really, really make a difference in a lot of the things in our communities, in our lives, in our families, in this wretched world we're living in. I mean, every day I get up and some days I just have to turn the news off because I'm like, oh God, every day is worse than the day before. But you can't just shut the news off every day. You got to sometimes sit and say, well, what can I do? No, I can't just take a magic wand. I wish I could and just wipe it all away. What can I do as an individual that's right in front of me? What can I do as one person? That's what I get up and do every day. And if I can answer that morning, I get myself up and I do that. And if that's just talking to one person or a small group of people, that's what I do. If that's going out doing something for elderly people or a group of children or whatever it is, taking somebody to the grocery store, I've been driving people to go get their COVID-19 shots. To me, that's providing a service to somebody. This is what we're going to have to do. And I just can't stop now, but I'm still going to have to turn that news off sometimes because it makes me want to just open up the window and throw that TV completely out because it is getting horrible. But this is what we're going to have to do. Step outside of that comfort zone. Sometimes to step on that, you'll be surprised at what you can do. Sometimes we limit ourselves because we think we can't do anything because we're so used to doing the same thing the same way all the time. So we think we can't do anything differently. Step out and challenge yourself sometimes. And you'll see like, oh my God, I didn't even know I could do that because you never gave yourself the opportunity. But there are people that are waiting on you. I don't care what it is that you can do. There are people waiting on you. They need you. And if there's anything that you can do it. People need it. I cannot stand to see a hurting person. I don't care on what level that is. If there's something I can do to ease that pain, I would try to do it in any way that I can. And I'm just a person, I don't have much to work with, but whatever I got, I'm going to work with it. And that's what I would advise you all to do. And I'm so eternally grateful to Gertrude and definitely to Ruth, because she was just I just enjoyed her too when I was over in Zimbabwe. And they were just so welcoming and so accommodating and just so, I never felt that one thing for sure is I never felt that I was in a strange place. I never felt that I was in a place I'd never been before. And that was the one thing that sticks with me to this day, that I felt that I had been there before. And who knows, maybe I have. I don't know. But I am so grateful because that was the start of the humanitarian path for me. Is when I went to Zimbabwe and watching the work that Gertrude was doing over there. It sparked something in me. It ignited something that I can't put it out. As much as I try to blow out that light now, blow out that match sometimes because I get tired or I don't have the means to do some of the things I want to do, I can't put it out. Because when it's deeply embedded in you, you can't put that out. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening. And, I hope I said something that helps. And thank you all. I appreciate it. Thank you.